Hi guys, Jackie with Famished Farm, and we're back this week using our recipe stash to come up with some new family favorite recipes while using things that we already have in the house, trying to keep our pantry, our freezer, refrigerator, all of those items fresh, not having to throw anything away. And I think we were pretty successful this week. In large part because we do a weekly meal plan and I look at what I've got in the freezer. So for instance, this week we had, I was going to do a meatball recipe and instead I did apricot Fresno glazed chicken. That's from Real Simple magazine. And the reason I did that instead is I didn't have ground pork, but I did have some bone-in chicken pieces in the freezer. And I didn't have the chili peppers that the recipe called for, so I kind of use this recipe as I do with most recipes as inspiration. So I don't always, in fact, I very rarely follow directions exactly, whether that's because I just don't read them. I like the combination of ingredients, so I just start cooking and then I happen to maybe read the recipe after the fact and oh gosh, I did something totally wrong. But it often leads to recipes that are still delicious. If you've been cooking a while, it's easy to kind of make substitutions and changing techniques because you've done it. I'm 62. I've done this for a long time. So if you're new to cooking, you probably want to stick to the actual techniques until you get some experience under your belt. But for this week's recipes, we'll talk about the new ones in a little bit, but we did a pizza night, which I make my own pizza. So we're trying to do healthier recipes, healthier cooking, because I'm trying to lose weight. We're trying to keep Rod healthy. And so we still do a splurge night, and pizza is definitely a splurge. But if you make it from scratch, you control the ingredients. So that can be a thumbs up. We also do in the summertime, we cook hot dogs, we grill hot dogs. And what I do then is I choose a low sodium turkey dog, and I sometimes don't have the hot dog bun, just depending on how my carb intake is. The other recipe that we made is a family favorite. My sister made this for us up north, and then I got the recipe from her. It is a chicken cordon bleu sandwich. I don't put the ham slice on it anymore, but it's a thin sliced chicken breast grilled with Swiss cheese. It's a delicious sandwich. And that's another one. If I've had too many carbs this week, I leave the bun off. And then lastly, in keeping with our using what we have, using what I'm trying to stay on top of resource-wise is leftover night. So I pull something out of the freezer that we've had previously in the week that we enjoyed, and so leftover night is not a chore, it's actually delicious. So our 3 new recipes this week, and we did heavy on the chicken. That apricot Fresno glazed chicken from Real Simple, from scratchpantry.com, ranch pesto chicken, again using pesto that's in my fridge that I made last summer that I want to make sure that I stay on top of. And also the ranch seasoning is low salt ranch seasoning that I use to make our lunchtime ranch dressing. So I, again, control the ingredients on that. And then our last recipe is from Southern Living magazine, their Cajun shrimp stir fry. Now, I've had really good luck with stir fries the last several weeks and really good luck with kebab type recipes. And this week is no different. These are really delicious recipes. I can recommend all 3 of them. And hopefully you guys cook along with me. If you have any suggestions as to techniques, substitutions, anything healthy recipe-wise, maybe it's your family favorite, please leave a comment. And if you like us, subscribe. Thanks for being here, guys, and let's get cooking. Our first recipe is ranch pesto chicken by scratchpantry.com. Of calls for 2 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken thighs, which I have in the freezer. These are still slightly frozen. I'm going to pour those out of the bag and then trim the fatty little pieces off. The recipe also calls for ranch powder seasoning, which I have my own ranch spices that I make ranch dressing to go on my salads at lunch every day. So I'm going to use just a tablespoon of that instead of the ranch powder seasoning, which would have the buttermilk or milk powder in it. And her recipe calls for onion top pesto. I'm just going to use my basil pesto. And then she calls for a 1/2 cup of olive oil. And I've made some of her marinades before, and I just cut back on the olive oil. So I think I used 2 tablespoons. So we'll get this chicken cut up and then we'll go to the next step. So I've decided I'm going to put these on skewers. So I am going to just cut these into nice sized chunks for the stainless steel skewers that I'm going to slide them on. And then we'll start making our marinade, which is just going to go in the fridge for us for a couple hours. She says to marinate for 3 to 4 hours, and I'm pretty sure that's about what we marinated this for. Here's my little container with my ranch spices. So I'm going to use just a tablespoon of that. And we'll put that in with the bowl with the chicken. And you guys, you could put this directly in a Ziploc bag. That would save you from having to clean this bowl. And then she uses 1 cup of pesto, and I'm not going to use that much, but I'm going to use try to get all of the olive oil out of the top of that jar of pesto. So you see I used about 2 probably heaping spoonfuls of the pesto. Again, healthy recipe week, so we're trying to keep this a little healthier. And I do, instead of using a 1/2 cup of the olive oil, I'm just using 2 tablespoons. Now she doesn't call for salt and pepper because those are in the spices, the ranch powder seasoning. Because my ranch spices do not use salt, I'm going to put a little bit of salt and pepper on here, and then just cover this with saran wrap, and that goes right into the fridge to sit for several hours before we thread them onto the skewers later. And then because these are going to be kebabs, I've decided to add some mushrooms, onion, and some red bell pepper. I wish I had more red bell pepper, but this is just what I had left in the fridge. So I'm going to take my skewer. These are flat stainless steel skewers, which we really like. And we're going to use our grill basket, as you can see on the right side here. This grill basket is worth whatever we paid for it. We use this during the summer multiple times a week. You can put burger patties in it. You can put chicken pieces, chicken breast, whatever you've got that you need that needs to go on the grill that maybe you want to flip as one instead of individually. This grill basket is the bomb. I'll try to find a link for that. I think we just got this at Walmart, but I'll try to find something on Amazon that's similar. And so just thread your way down the skewer, making plenty of meat and veggies on each one. Although when we serve this, we take them off the skewer, and I generally put the veggies in one dish and the meat goes in a different dish. So here I've got all of the skewers threaded, and I'm going to go ahead and throw my extra veggies into the cage here. And I do wish that I had gone ahead and put all of the veggies in with the chicken and just mix that around a little bit to get the seasoning and the oil on all of the veggies. That is something I would do different next time. And obviously, because I added these to the recipe, it's not in the recipe, but do that. So here they are ready to go on the grill. Here they are coming off the grill, and they were delicious. Our next recipe is the Apricot Fresno glazed chicken, and this is a real simple magazine recipe, and I really should retitle this the Peach Fresno glazed chicken because I did not use apricot preserves as the recipe said. I used peach because that's what I had. And then you'll also see the recipe calls for red Fresno chilies, and I don't have those. So these are my Anaheim chilies that I bought from the store because I'm growing these in the garden, and I've heard they are similar to the canned green chilies that we use for like our enchiladas and burritos when I make them. And I just wanted to see what the chilies, make sure they were mild, and they are. These are perfectly fine for Rod and I. When we make like a stuffed chili pepper recipe usually during the summer is when we make that. And I am specifically growing these Anaheim peppers because I want to be able to do that. So I am removing the seeds and the ribs. If you like heat, you will not have to do this. I did it just to be safe. We like flavor, but we're not, we don't like things really hot. So you would save the step of having to de-seed and de-rib this pepper if you like heat. It just calls for thinly slicing. And basically I'm just gonna go ahead and get this marinade, this sauce mixed together, and it does call for sliced chilies, thinly sliced, about a half a cup. This was a pretty big pepper, and this did make more than a half a cup, but they're mild, so I'm not really worried about it. This is a 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar to start our sauce, and then we're going to go with our half a cup of apricot preserves, and I did go just a little shy of a half a cup. This is more than 1/3 of a cup probably, and less than 1/4 or a half cup. I got to thinking maybe I should only go a 1/4 cup, but I went closer to the full amount because it is the first time I'm making the recipe. So we were gonna try to make it a little healthier, but we ended up going pretty close there to the half a cup. Now, at this point, I am going to throw this into the microwave and try to melt down this jelly a little bit. It does want you to stir this until it's smooth, which is not going to happen anyway because this is jelly or jam, not jelly. And so there's little chunks of peach. Now we're going to add our 4 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce. And the recipe does call for grated fresh ginger, but I am completely out of ginger. I thought I had some in the freezer, but I did not find it. So I end up just using about a teaspoon of dry ginger powder. Obviously, you're going to use fresh if you've got it. And I do usually have fresh ginger, but this is why I keep powdered on hand, just in case. And I did put this in the microwave for another minute or so, again, to try to melt down the jam and then whisk it until it's as smooth as you can make it. And then we're going to add our chilies into this mix, and I just give them another quick little stir. Then when your sauce is prepared, you're just going to set that to the side. And I needed to cut up my chicken pieces because I had quarters. And so I trimmed the fat on these and then just trimmed the leg from the thigh portion. And I do that, I think I had 3. So weight-wise, this is probably 2 pounds, 2.5 pounds instead of the 4.5 pounds the recipe called for. It was just the right amount to fit into my cast iron skillet. And you'll notice I had put down a paper towel, a couple layers of paper towel on my cutting board. And that was just simply because the recipe tells you to pat the chicken dry before it goes into the skillet. And here I am using my trusty steak knife to cut the bone through the bone, the leg bone. And then I finished that cut on the skin with my scissors. You guys, I'm sure you have a beautiful set of fancy knives that are really sharp. You do you. Just let me keep using my steak knife. I love it. And then into my cast iron, I'm gonna heat this up, and it calls for 2 tablespoons of olive oil. I probably do about half of that olive oil. And then also you want to season this chicken. I lightly salt, and then I heavy pepper my chicken, anything basically, light salt, heavy pepper. And then you're just going to stick it on your whatever oven safe skillet you have, or brazier, or whatever you have to use. And I fit this all just perfectly in my cast iron. And we're going to let this chicken brown skin side down, and you're going to do this until the skin is crisp and golden brown. It takes about 10 minutes, although I think on my high temp burner here it took about 9 minutes. And when you put it in, you want to season then the other side of the chicken, which you just saw me do. And I'm going to make sure the oil is distributed throughout the pan. And then I pretty much just let this sit. I check the temperature, make sure it's okay. And after that 9 minutes, I come back and this is beautifully golden brown. So you're going to flip your chicken over, and this is a tight fit, so this takes a few minutes to get this flipped over. But once you're done with that, then you're basically going to put the glaze back on the chicken, and then this goes into a 350 oven, and it's going to basically cook until done, which is, you're going to use your meat thermometer, but roughly 25 to 30 minutes. And because I am making this for dinner at some future point in the week, I am going to cook it to just done, because then the night that I make this for dinner, I'm going to put this into the oven at 350, 400, and let it come back up to temperature roughly for 35 to 40 minutes, even an hour. You could put it in at 325 for an hour, and then that will be nicely warmed up for dinner. Here's a step I'm not real good at. Several times throughout the cooking period, go ahead and spoon the glaze over the chicken. That will keep the crust nice and crispy, and that glaze will get thicker so it coats the chicken. The glaze, you can actually put this back in the oven on broil and let that glaze caramelize. Our final new recipe this week, a Cajun shrimp stir fry, and this calls for Cajun seasoning, which I don't have any. So I've just Googled a Cajun seasoning recipe, and I'm basically, instead of using a tablespoon, I'm just using a 1/4 teaspoon for each of these spices. So I've done the paprika and the salt. Now I'm doing the garlic powder and the pepper. It also calls for onion powder, and my onion powder was a little clumpy, so I'm kind of declumping it there. And then oregano, cayenne pepper, and I am not a huge thyme person, as I have said before, so this called for 1/2 tablespoon, and so I just used a little tiny bit, less than 1/8 of a teaspoon. Now I set that to the side, and I've got pre-washed snow peas that are ready to go. I think this is an 8-ounce bag. The recipe only calls for 6, so you could withhold a few of those. I'm just going to go ahead and throw them in. And then recipe calls for, 6 cloves of garlic, which there's no way that Rod and I can do that. So I just do a clove, and I mince that in my handy dandy little thing. I add a tablespoon of butter there on the side, and then it calls for the juice, basically 2 teaspoons of lime juice later on in the recipe, so I'm going ahead and prepping that. It calls for scallions, which I don't have, so I'm going to just pull that little dish And the bottom left is some green onions I pulled out of the freezer. And so I'm just getting this all ready. This is a stir fry, so if you have all of your cut up veggies and additives set to the side and ready to go, a stir fry is super easy and just usually delicious. And like I said, we've had very good stir fry luck. If you're looking for good stir fries, look back in my recipes for ones that I've done in weeks past. Now, this week I have just the 3/4 pound of the extra large shrimp. These are not the beautiful pound of jumbos that I've had the last couple of times. Here is my Cajun seasoning. I don't know how close we were to a tablespoon there. And then about a tablespoon of oil. And I did use olive oil there. You're just going to coat that shrimp nicely. And then add another tablespoon or so of olive oil in your pan. And when it's hot, go ahead and add your shrimp. Now, this is, like I said, it's going to be very fast. So you're going to put your shrimp in, and this is over medium-high heat. And you're going to cook until browned on both sides, but not fully cooked through. So roughly about 2 minutes total cooking time. I do a little less than that because this is going to be dinner later tonight. So I want these cooked about to the 75% line. And then take those shrimp and put them on a plate. Now you're going to add, you may need to add a little more oil. I didn't feel that was necessary. There was plenty of moisture in the pan. So I'm adding my snow peas and my garlic. And then I'm coming back with my ginger. And I'm using a teaspoon of dried instead of the fresh. And then just a little handful there of green onions. It calls for 3 medium scallions with the white, green, and dark divided. And then some rice wine vinegar, about 3 tablespoons. And basically at this point you are going to just cook this until the rice wine vinegar is reduced to nearly nothing. It takes about a minute. It's very fast. Then I turn down the temp. I'm adding in that tablespoon of butter, which I cut down from a 1/4 cup just to a tablespoon, just so I've got the flavor. And then be sure to get all of that yummy goodness of the hoisin sauce, or that was fish sauce, I'm sorry. Get that out of your tablespoon. This is hot sauce. I didn't add 2 teaspoons. That's maybe a 1/2 teaspoon. And then you're just going to mix this until that butter is melted and getting everything nicely coated. Add back in your shrimp. And at this point, guys, you're just going to cook that until the shrimp is finished cooking. So just another minute or 2. So super, super fast cook time. This is what it looks like with the rice I'm going to serve on the side. And I do add some chopped peanuts. The recipe calls for a 1/4 cup. I added maybe half of that. So as usual, the Scratch Pantry Ranch Pesto Chicken, 2 thumbs up from both Rod and I. A super easy, delicious kebab, or you could just throw the chicken thighs directly onto your grill. Do it however you like. Actually, her recipe calls for 400 degrees in a 9x13 pan for 20 to 35 minutes. So you do you. We're just that time of year where everything is grilled. So I made lots of changes to this recipe. It's a very forgiving recipe, so use what you have. As usual, use what you have. The only change I would make is to make sure I had at least 1 full red or pretty colored pepper to go with this. It could use some more color. So, but it was delicious, guys. I highly recommend. So from Real Simple Magazine, our Apricot Fresno glazed chicken really became a peach Anaheim glazed chicken. because I did take some liberties with this recipe by switching out the apricot preserves for peach. And I didn't use fresh ginger, I didn't use Fresno chilies, I used Anaheim chilies, and I just used some chicken quarters I had in my freezer. But all in all, guys, delicious. This is really pretty. It probably would be a little prettier with red peppers instead of green, but that color of the chicken, that 10 minutes that was on the stovetop with that browning and crisping up, this is delicious. Make this. I think stir fries are just made for weeknight dinners. Yes, there's usually a long list of ingredients, which if you make Asian food, you already have in your fridge. And yes, you may have to do a little chopping, but if you use dried spices like ginger, garlic, pre-washed, prepared veggies, then it's pretty easy. And this was one of those nights where I really didn't have that much to do other than squeeze that lemon and mince the garlic. So very delicious, quick and easy. I even had pre-cooked rice that I just took out of the freezer. So another delicious 2 thumbs up stir fry.